To college football we go, where Jim Harbaugh is entering his 7th season as the coach at Michigan. And despite going 2-4 last year, Harbaugh agreed to a contract extension with his alma mater that runs through the 2025 season. Let's take a look at their schedule for the upcoming year. Obviously, all eyes will be on that game November 27th when they host Ohio State. The question is, what is at stake for Harbaugh this year? The answers, as always, come from our Heather Dinich.
When Jim Harbaugh was hired at Michigan in 2014, his $8 million contract put him alongside Clemson's Dabo Swinney and Alabama's Nick Saban as one of the highest-paid coaches in the country. 7 years later, that remains the only time Harbaugh was on par with national title contenders, and his salary has since been cut in half, part of a 4-year contract extension that he signed in January. So for now, let's forget about the Wolverines ascending into the playoff conversation. The more appropriate question is if Harbaugh can beat Ohio State and win a Big Ten title. According to ESPN's Football Power Index, Michigan has a 2% chance to win its division. It's not as if Harbaugh hasn't been a consistent winner, he just hasn't won big. With the exception of a dreadful 2-4 finish in 2020, a uniquely awful record that occurred in the midst of a pandemic, Harbaugh has won at least 9 games in 4 of his first 5 seasons, including 3 10-win seasons. Michigan fans, though, want more. If the coach hasn't changed, then maybe the expectations should.
Boy, that is so well said. As Heather and Paul rejoin us here, I did an essay, Heather, on this at one point during last season, or maybe it's 2 seasons ago now, sort of all kind of melds together. But where that really is the issue here, people want Michigan to be something that candidly it just isn't and hasn't been for a very long time. That predates the arrival of Jim Harbaugh.
It does. And, you know, Michigan's athletic director, Ward Manuel, has said that he's willing to be patient, but that they want to win. Harbaugh wants to win. He's a Michigan man through and through. But Ward Manuel hasn't set a minimum amount of games that he has to win this season. And quite frankly, that contract he just signed works in the favor of the school. If they fire him this year, it's $4 million. Every year after that, it goes down $1 million. It gets cheaper to fire him. So he's certainly under some pressure.
So, Paul, how would you describe the pressure on Jim Harbaugh as he heads into this season?
Greeny, I think it's enormous. What Heather said there is interesting because Jim Harbaugh is not going to survive. I mean, you don't start cutting someone's salary after doing a lousy job the last couple of years and expect him to suddenly do something that he hasn't done. And, you know, I used to, when we had these conversations in the past, Greeny, I would get blowback from Michigan fans. Not anymore. Michigan fans had had enough of Jim Harbaugh, and the school perhaps made a wise decision not making a change in a pandemic year, although a lot of other schools did. But I think Jim Harbaugh is on extremely short time. In fact, I think he'll be gone when this next season comes to an end. I think he has virtually no chance of surviving.
Well, that's interesting, and it is not surprising to me coming from you, Paul, but that's neither here nor there. Let me ask you this. What constitutes success? So, Paul, what would he have to do that you would say, oh, he got it turned around? Does he have to get into the playoff, or can he do that without taking Michigan where it hasn't been in so long?
He has to go to the playoffs. Greeny, I mean, we're not talking about some Midland program in the middle of nowhere. We're talking about the University of Michigan here. This is one of the great programs in the history of college football. And for the university to acknowledge that it's okay to be lousy or mediocre is embarrassing and shameful. So does he have to beat Ohio State? The only way he gets his job or keeps his job without beating Ohio State is to find a way to the playoffs, and that's not going to happen. So ultimately, he has to beat Ohio State. And you know what, Greeny? He's not going to do it. He's not going to do it next year, the year after. I don't think he's ever going to do it.
That obviously is a big piece of all of this, the Ohio State of it all. And as I said in that essay that I did, to call that a rivalry is really not appropriate. It's a relationship. A hammer and a nail have a relationship. They do not have a rivalry. And that's what this has been. And again, it has been that since long before Jim Harbaugh came. So, Heather, I guess I would ask you that somewhat complicated question. Like, what is success? The people who just gave him that contract extension, what do you think they would consider to be a successful outcome for the next season or two?
Well, I would disagree with Paul respectfully, of course, that he's going to get fired after this season because I think he's got some wiggle room. I think success, Greeny, this year is a winning record and a win in a bowl game. He hasn't won a bowl game, I think, in 4 straight tries. So let's get back to good, right? We're not talking about a top 25 team here. They might be top 30. We talk more in the national media right now about Coastal Carolina and Louisiana and Iowa State. Let's get back into the conversation of relevance. To me, that's a successful season because they're not going to the playoffs. But I will remind people about Ohio State. Let's go back to, I think, 2016 it was, the spot when we saw Ohio State convert that 4th and 1. If Ohio State doesn't convert that play and Michigan goes to the Big Ten championship that year, guys, are we even sitting here having this conversation right now?
It's a great point, and Heather, I would pick it up and go further. If you had told me then, Paul Finebaum, when he came that close to winning it that year, that he would get no closer, in fact, he would be this far away, I would have told you were out of your mind, right? Like, this has been a huge surprise to me. Has it been a surprise to you, Paul?
Yes, I thought he was a great hire. When he came there, I thought it was one of the great seminal hires in modern college football history. It turned out to be a bust. And listen, we can keep propping him up, but it's not going to change. Greeny, if Jim Harbaugh was the CEO of Amazon or Apple or a major Fortune 500 company, he would have been shown the door a long time ago. I just don't understand why Michigan has sold its soul to prop up this guy who's just a mediocre coach.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.